What's going on, y'all? You should already know, but if you don't know by now, it's your man, Mike Deloach, coming back to you with some more content of a black man in New Mexico. So, in the meantime, just sit back, relax as we give you some of that.
I tell them, you ain't gotta be bishop, you wanna have the juice.
So,
Everybody.
one thing that we wanted to touch on today is gonna be the small town mentality. Because if you've been following, I come from a small town, and within New Mexico, there's a lot of small towns within itself too. But today, I'm just gonna break down a couple numbers to get started, just to put things into perspective, and then we're gonna get into, that small town mentality and how, sometimes it could be, detrimental if you continue to think in that small town mentality, you know, or just understanding the small town mentality, how that could potentially help you whenever you do get into those big environments, if you would. So getting into the numbers, I'm just going to compare four different states: the state of California, the state of New York, the state of Georgia, where I'm from, and also the state of New Mexico. So I want to do California and New York because those seem to be the states or the counties that have populations with a million plus people in certain counties. Whereas Georgia and New Mexico, you don't have so many of the million plus people in one area. But again, just to put things into perspective, on that small town. So let's start with California. California has a total of 58 counties. New York has a total of 62. Georgia, a total of 159. And New Mexico has a total of 33. So if we break down those counties, and as far as less than 10,000, between 10 and 75,000, 200 plus, and a million plus. So we'll start with the less than 10,000. So with California, they have three counties less than 10,000. New York, one county less than 10,000. Georgia, 35 counties less than 10,000. And New Mexico has 8 counties less than 10,000. And I'm going to give you the numbers, and then I'm going to give you the percentages, so you can kind of give you more or less an idea to, or a better picture of how to see that. So with the population of 10 to 75,000, as far as the number of counties with California, you have 16. New York, 25. Georgia, 88. And New Mexico, 19. Now when you go into 200 plus, with California, you have 28 counties. New York, 18. Georgia, 10. New Mexico, 2. And when you get into the million plus, with California, you have 9. New York, you have 6. Georgia, you have 1. And New Mexico doesn't have any counties that has a million plus. You know what I mean? So that kind of gives you an idea of each county, and the population by county. And when it comes to 10 million plus, the only one I saw with 10 million plus was California. Los Angeles County had 10 million plus. So that's definitely the city, if you would. You know what I mean? But to break that down into percentages, when you look at each population, as far as 10,000 and less, California had a percentage of 5%, New York 2%, Georgia 22%, and New Mexico 24%. When you go between that 10,000 and 75,000 range, the percent of people you have in California is 28%, in New York is 40%, in Georgia you have 55%, and in New Mexico you have 58%. Between that 10,000 and 75,000 people range. And now when you get up to the 200 plus in California, 48% of the population are in counties that's 200 plus. New York, they have a percentage of 29, Georgia 6%, and New Mexico 6%. So you see in California, you have 48% of people living in counties that's 200 plus. When New York has a pretty decent amount of 29%, but majority of those people are, and even for Georgia and New Mexico, the majority of people are in that 10,000 to 75,000 people range of population. And then when you get to a million plus, California has 16% of the counties, that's a million plus. New York has 10%, that's a million plus. Georgia has less than a percent, that's a million plus. And of course, New Mexico doesn't have, any percentage in that million plus range. And the other range, basically from the 75,000 to the 200,000 range in California is 3%. New York was 19%. Georgia was 16%. And New Mexico was 12%. So, hope you're able to kind of follow along with that. If not, rewind and go back, and compare those numbers, you know what I mean? But if you look at it as far as what's the bulk of people and what population size, if you go with California, the bulk of the people, 48%, was in the 200 plus. And with New York, Georgia, and New Mexico, the bulk of their people, New York had 40% in the 10 to 75,000. Georgia had the 55% and the 10 to 75,000. And New Mexico had the highest number of 58% in that 10 to 75,000. So again, as you can see, that's where the bulk of people are. But me, my small town, and I think now it's showing just a little over 10,000, but in the census of 2019, it was showing less than 10,000. So in Georgia, I would fall under that 22% of people been in that small town. So, and even in New Mexico has, 24% in that less than 10,000. So you got to think that's pretty much a quarter of the people in New Mexico. And granted, most of the population here in New Mexico is within that 6%, and here in New Mexico, or here in Albuquerque, because it has over 500,000 people. But as you can see, not too many towns. It's only 6%. That's 200,000 and plus. You know what I mean? So it's not too many of that fast life per se, and you do get a lot of that small town mentality. So with Georgia and New Mexico, that's what I want to compare, because I grew up around 10,000 or less. So it's not like California. It's not like New York, where you got a lot of counties that's 200,000 and up. So with that being said, the way of life is completely different in a way. It's not so much hustle and bustle. It's more of everybody knows everybody. Whereas in the city, you may meet somebody one day and you may not never see that person again. Because and the city is almost has its own little small towns in a way, because it's broken down into quadrants. But most people stay within 15, 20 minutes proximity of their house. So unless you're shopping on a different side of town again, you may not see that person again unless you're in that area. Now, if you're in that area, you're going to go to the grocery store. You're going to see the same workers. The grocery workers are going to see the same faces coming through. They're going to recognize the people that's in, that area, that lives in that area, because they always come to this store. And that's kind of how the small town is. Everybody knows everybody. There's not so many places that you can go. So, the places that you do go, you're going to always run into the same people 9 times out of 10. When, like I said, that's how, it becomes everybody knows everybody. But one of the things I really want to get into is, again, that way of life and with that small town. Because, coming from a population less than 10,000, going to a population that's over 500,000, that was like a big jump. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, definitely learned a lot of things growing up in a small town environment, that I was able to bring with me, and apply that within the city living and within my day to day because, with that you can have two different type of people. People in the city are again used to the hustle and bustle, used to that fast life. So, they're not really taking the time to really stop and say hello and, talk to someone along that travels. They, trying to get moving before they miss the train or before they miss the bus or, you know, whatever the case may be. Whereas, in the country, you can run into somebody and actually stop and chit chat with them, catch up with them, see how they doing, see how their family doing, and this and that and third. You know what I mean? But again, that was definitely a big jump going from one environment to the next. When the thing was, I had to get out of um, my small town mentality as far as my way of thinking because you got a couple talk about type of people. You got a couple different type of people that's within that small town, and maybe you're one of those people who are in that small town, whether it be Georgia, New Mexico, or whatever state you may be in. You may be within that small town, and I'm sure whatever state that you in, you're gonna have that city or that population that has a 500,000 plus, and 200,000 plus, But again, right now you may be in one of those towns that's, 75,000 and below. Now, being in that small town, you may feel limited to the things that you want to do. You know what I mean? And shout out to the homie Keith White. Because one thing I learned from him is to dream big. Not only dream big, but act to put yourself in position of greater heights, whatever it may be. But he kind of helped me get out of that small town mentality too, just seeing how he kind of maneuver within this environment. But again, you may be that person who may be in this small town and you may be or feel limited to your abilities. You may know that, man, like I was meant for the city, and a part of me, I think that's why I got out and moved. There were a couple of different places, of course, in Georgia that I could have potentially moved to, but I didn't really know anybody in those other cities or whatever. So coming out to this environment was definitely helpful, if you would, in the fact that I knew people that were here. So it wasn't, like I was just going into this new city and didn't know anybody and had to start completely from scratch. Like in a way, I still started from scratch, but I still knew one or two people, that was already here who was from where I'm from to kind of help, be that medium, if you will, from coming from that small town to operating into a faster paced environment and just knowing how to maneuver, And the thing is, for me, at a point, I felt like I wasn't, meant for the country. Or, don't get me wrong, I love where I'm from, and I appreciate everything that I've learned from where I'm from. It taught me who I am, But as far as, success and accomplishments, a part of me always felt like I was too big for my town, too big for my country town, And so I took that leap of faith and moved to the city, if you would. And of course, it's not city like L.A. or New York, or Atlanta, or whatever. But it's city enough for me. It's definitely a nice stepping stone. Glad that I was able to see this environment before operating into city. So, coming here before I got to see Vegas or before I got to see LA, like, or even Miami, it's a good way to ease me into those faster paced environments whenever I did get into those environments, But I went, but again, about as far as, being in a big environment, I knew I needed to get out of the country and get into a city around more people and expose myself, to a different atmosphere and even more people to really get my talents and my skills and showcase my skills to other people to be a little more successful, because the more people you serve, the more money you make, the better chance you have of becoming wealthy at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And so The thing is, though, sometimes, you have some people in the small town who never want to leave. They're comfortable knowing everybody in the town. Maybe their family been in the town for generations. Maybe they've already gotten established within that town, and it's like they got everything that they need there. They don't feel the need to relocate or to live that city life, if you would. Because the thing is, even though you have some people who never leave, sometimes you get those people who, they stay in the country or stay in a small town, but they still travel to other places. They go to the beaches and they go to the cities, whether it be to eat or to go shopping or whatever, or just to even explore and see other places. Some people still get out and travel and see other places, yet they tend to kind of stay in their comfort zone and within the environment and within those people in that place of comfort, in that small town. You know what I mean? And with that being said, sometimes you have people who don't want to leave. You know what I mean? Sometimes, like say you have those people who live in those smaller environments who may visit these other cities, but at the same time, like they see it for what it is. They're not, um, excited by the hustle and bustle of the city life. You know what I'm saying? Like some people may thrive in those environments. Like imagine somebody growing up in Los Angeles County or in New York. You know what I mean? And moving to a smaller environment, moving to a country environment. Hell, that may drive them crazy because they're not used to hearing the sirens in the streets, or like say hearing buses and hearing honking and hearing trash trucks. And so they may go to the country. They may be too quiet for them. They may feel like it's too slow paced. They may feel like, you know what I'm saying? I need to be back in the city. But sometimes you have those people in those smaller towns who feel the same way about the city. They go to the city and it's like, it's too noisy. Traffic's too crowded. It take me an hour just to get from one side of town to the next. The commute is terrible. Some people don't want to deal with all of that. Some people like it easy breezy. You know what I'm saying? And it's not always, 75 miles an hour on the highway or the freeway, on the interstate, wherever, whatever interstate or highway run through where you at. Some people don't want that. Some people like to drive 45, 55, no more than 60 on the highway. And granted, the atmosphere plays a lot into it, but as far as watching out for animals crossing the road. But some people rather take it easy and is not so much into that fast life. You know what I mean? And on one side too, you have some people who they'll leave and they'll never look back. And I remember a lady telling me one day, she's like, a lot of people think a lot of those crazy people are in the city. And she was like, no, sometimes it be the people in the country that, be a little more crazier than the people in the city. When I say that to say this is because, even if you probably look at some of those little murder stories, murder mysteries on Netflix, whatever streaming device or streaming service that you have, I'm sure they have some type of murder mystery, some docu-series about a murder mystery. But if you look at them, like a lot of them do come in or do happen in little country towns in whatever state that it may be that you may not have even heard of. You know what I mean? Part of it could be to the fact that people get bored. I don't know. You know what I mean? But they got a lot of time to think and they got a lot of time to plan and strategize. And before they really make that move. But here it is. At the end of the day, the mindset of that small town could be in a way disturbed or disturbing to some people who've lived in that environment. So sometimes for them, they may feel like, I need to get out of here because of the mindset. And it's not always in a case of like, I got bigger dreams, or or like the country's not for me. Sometimes it could be, like I said, just to get out of that mindset. You see how it could perpetuate, and it could possibly be, a cycle of, crabs in the bucket. So sometimes, people, want to get out, and they never look back. I think about a good friend of mine too. Grew up in Arizona, small town of Arizona, now here in the city, and sometimes he said whenever he goes back home, like he stays away from certain people and for certain things because he know if he go kicking it with Joe Blow or um, you know somebody that he grew up with and who ain't went nowhere. Let's say that person ain't never been outside of um, the country town. We may touch on that in a second, but let's say that person never got out of town and all they know is what they got in their town. But meanwhile, they may work and whatever, make a living, but at the same time, when they get off work, all they do is drink or whatever. On the weekends, all they want to do is drink, or they're smoking and they let smoking consume most of their day, and instead of actually trying to get out and get something. And so sometimes if you've left and you came back, and if you stay back too long, if you get intertwined in some of those older circles with some of your older companions, again, it becomes that crab in the bucket cycle, and you get sucked into that way of living, and it makes it harder for you to get back out. So some people, like I said, when they leave, they never look back. A good friend of mine and my brother would do it to me too. I moved out and her brother moved out. And so meanwhile, the same story is that she would always try to ask her brother to move back and was like, hey, we can get a place together, just come back, we'll do our thing. And my brother would do the same thing to me, like, man, you should come back, you ain't got to move home, but just come back, we can get a place together. When me and her brother had the same thoughts, like, nah, like, it sounds nice, but that's just, in a way I'm done with that. I done got away from that. And for me, um, I guess I really didn't see it until, like I say, I left Georgia. I came out here at 19. So Georgia kind of, raised me. New Mexico kind of made a man out of me. You know what I mean? And the thing was, I really didn't see that small town mentality until I had moved from New Mexico back to Georgia for like a year. And when I was in Georgia for that year, you start to see how, like I said, that small town mentality could become a detriment, and you start to see how competitive and how in another way it's a dog eat dog world because, and I say it becomes that dog eat dog world because in the city, here it is just like you fighting for those positions, you fighting to be competitive, to be, that top person or whatever. Whereas in the city or in the country, you may already have surpassed the level of skill that they may have. You know what I mean? But now you're operating in this environment, and they may even know that. But at the same time, well, I won't say the competition, but the access and the availability of jobs is a scarcity. So you got people, biting and scratching to kind of kick you out so that you don't take, what they're already comfortable with. You know what I'm saying? Because if they don't have this, it may be hard for them to find something else. You know what I'm saying? And so, and even with that, like I said, being there too long, you know, people may try to suck you in other things. Like, all right, they may not know they can beat you when it comes to whatever environment you're working in or whatever the case may be, or whatever industry, if you're in the music industry or whatever. Like, now, here it is, they may try to drag you into the other things, such as, the drinking and the smoking, and, to get you in that lazy mindset when, you know, it's, you way more ambitious than that. You know what I'm saying? And again, if you stay too long, sometimes, you can find your way back into it. Like they say, if you go looking for trouble, it's gonna find you. So for some people, they know trouble is within the small town, compared to where they at now. So they tend to leave and never look back. You know what I mean? But at the same time too, some people leave and they don't go too far away. Some people, for example, like I said, I had a couple different places I could have moved within Georgia that's not as big as Atlanta. You had Augusta, you had Savannah, you know what I'm saying, Valdosta, you know. You had those different places that I could move to or could have moved to, but being in that environment, again, you got 55% of Georgia is a small towns. You know what I mean? So even though it was a bigger, you know, town for what I was used to, I could have probably still got wrapped up in that small town environment. You know what I mean? But some people, they still get out, and again, they may go to those other places surrounding just to be close to home. So if something new happened with their parents or grandparents, whatever, they're within hours away. It doesn't take, for me, it takes a day driving. So it doesn't take a day to drive or a 5 hour flight or whatever. Like I say, some places you can travel and get home quicker than you could, if you were, driving from where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people leave and they stay close to home, but again, I just kind of wanted to put things into perspective as far as the small town mentality and the type of people that you have within the small towns, and like I said, for yourself, if you're within that small town environment and you wanted to get out, because sometimes a small town environment can get you stuck in a way. It's like you only know what you know. You don't know what else is out there until you actually go out there and experience it. And you never know. The thing is, like I said, it may work out for the best for you. For me myself, I feel like it's worked in my favor getting out of that small town. Again, a lot of the traditions and values that I learned within that small town is still with me, and is a part of who I am. Even though I may be in the city, some people may be rude, and I be rude to those who are rude. But if I give you my southern hospitality, some people appreciate that. You know what I'm saying, and they can see that, okay, he's not from the city. Even though I may be operating or excelling in the city environment, they still see those traditional values that are raised upon. So again, the small town is not a bad thing. But don't be afraid to get out of that small town. Check out my video about self-exposure. Sometimes you have to expose yourself to other things to reach new heights, whatever it may be, depending on the type of success that you're looking for in life. And so for myself, I definitely had to expose myself to other things. Especially coming from the South. Again, it's mostly black and white. So my way of thinking was in a way black and white. You know what I mean? But when I moved out to the west side, to the southwest, here in New Mexico, I saw a little more of diversity. And now instead of thinking black and white, there's definitely a gray area, that you know that I have now, and I can expound upon, and again, um, if you want to get out of that small town, hey, do what you got to do. What I mean? Work out for your favor. And if you're one of those people where you leave and you get into a city environment and realize this ain't the place for me, you know what I'm saying? At least you gave it a shot. And you understand that, hey, I'd rather be, in my comfort zone in this small town to operate in this atmosphere versus being in the city life. And like I said, then again, it could propel you. You may meet somebody, bump shoulders with somebody, who can take you to that next level. And before you know it, you're going to be that small town gal or that small town guy, that then made it to the city and made a name for yourself, But that's really all I got for now, It's your man, Mike Deloach. Again, thank y'all for watching, and we're going to keep pushing out content, but hopefully this helps someone, who, like I said, may be torn or have thought about it, or don't know what to expect, So hope this helped you out. But until next time, we'll holler back.
That's in due time, but
As
nigga,
always, thank you for watching A Black Man in New Mexico with your man, Mike Deloach. So, if you haven't already, hit that icon in the corner. Be sure to click on my face so that you can subscribe to the channel and get uploaded, when we drop that new content. And by the way, be sure to check out one of these videos here as well, to see what else we got going on in the content, But again, we appreciate you. It's your man, Mike Deloach. And until next time, we'll holler back.